Welcome to our weekly reading where we explore all things astrological. We hope you're doing really well and staying safe out there. From our two different points of view in two different locations in the world, we bring to you a unique astrological perspective on what is happening right now across the globe. So here we go. Hi everybody, this is Diana in LA and Cary in the UK, and we're here today to talk about this week's stars. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. It is another week of intensification, as you have been seeing. There's more than ever. It is absolutely at its zenith of intensity, and we in the United States are up for an election this Tuesday. We're recording this on Saturday, and it is Halloween, and it is a full moon. That happened just this morning here. So there's a lot in the air today going on, and a lot of intensification, especially in regard to Uranus conjunct the moon, opposing the sun. So there's a lot of volatility out there, as we've been talking about, and more to come. Today we're going to try to tackle a lot of subjects, including the election, including the charts of Joe Biden and Donald Trump in regard to the election anyway, a little bit. We're going to touch on it because there's so much to say. But I also want to say one more thing, which is as you enter this understanding of astrology and the planets in the sky, remember that we're talking about it in the most general sense in terms of the whole world and what's happening in a pattern across the world. And yes, of course, it does affect our individual charts, but it affects our charts very differently. And so for some of us, this has not been a difficult time, or it's been a difficult time, but a motivating time, or a time where we learned something, or a time where we gained more insight, or a time where we changed something that needed to be changed, right? And for some, this is quite difficult, challenging to the maximum. So it depends on your chart. And that's why it's always good to look at your chart in regard to some of these aspects and degrees that we talk about in signs. Because if you know your chart a little bit, you can kind of see where these patterns are falling in your chart and might be affecting you. As an astrologer myself, all my life, I have very much been against the superstitious aspect of astrology, in that really it is just a tool, and it's something for awareness, almost like a tarot card, except it is a map of the stars at the moment of your birth, and it is very accurate in a certain sort of way, but you don't want to, I say this on Halloween, spook yourself. So stay optimistic. Hope always triumphs. Love is how. And this understanding that we're giving you and showing you isn't meant to cause more upset. It is just a map in order to help you navigate these very rapid moving waters that are happening these days. They're not always like that, but they have been this year. And that's when we started to do this, was to help navigate these very turbulent times. But this will pass. It hasn't passed yet. We're at maximum intensification at the moment, and it's going to get a little bit more still, but the end is near. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens in this election cycle here in the United States and across the world, as the whole world is dealing with economic issues, COVID issues, and what happens in America kind of trickles out. And so our economic system affects your economic system. So, it creates a mood in the world. So as you understand that, you can help. So that's what I want to remind you of before we start into the nitty-gritty of the nuts and bolts of this week's astrology. So Cary, I'll let you start. Where are we right now, or where are you right now in the UK?
Well, I'll tell you where we are right now in the UK. We're at the start of what is going to be a full lockdown. And interestingly, it came on the full moon. The Prime Minister wanted to release it to the information to the country on Monday, and someone leaked it to the press. So, unexpected revelation coming out of nowhere, affecting people emotionally, a moon conjunct Uranus being full, a full moon, it's going to have even more effect. So while we're doing this recording, the Prime Minister is actually delivering a message to the UK explaining why we're now going down into full lockdown for a whole month. And this is the flavour of what's happening. On Sunday, retrograde Mercury is going to be squaring Saturn at the tip of the stellium. On the Tuesday, Mercury comes to an abrupt stop as it goes direct, the day of the general election, which will feel like a mercurial shock on that particular day. On the following Friday, Mercury direct, going forward, is going to be squaring Saturn again. So this is a really important week where the square of Mercury starts to leave the stellium, but leaves an impression on Saturn, which is about foundations, which is about structure, and it coincides with the general election. So we've got that dynamic happening this week.
So let's talk about the election a little bit, because that is such a big dynamic that you're talking about with Mercury squaring Saturn, retrograde. It starts. Mercury goes direct at 10 a.m. in Los Angeles on Tuesday, so on election day. So that'll be interesting. So it's going from backward motion to forward motion on that day of the election. So that will cause all kinds of havoc in terms of the ballot counting and the results. And people don't trust the post office system, partly because of the media that's saying maybe it's good, maybe it's not good. So nobody even knows if their vote is being counted. And I think on the day, it's going to get more extreme, where things will be left out or hidden or ignored or just disappeared.
You know, I was looking at both Trump's chart and Biden's chart. And astrologically, those two should really get on very well together, because they've got some wonderful aspects. But interestingly, both of them have a planet at the same degree in the same star sign. So Trump has his Venus at 25 degrees Cancer, and Biden has his Jupiter at 25 degrees Cancer. Both of them will be experiencing huge pressure on election day, quite obviously. You've got the stellium opposed Donald Trump's Venus and Joe Biden's Jupiter. At the same time, Mercury, which has gone stationary, will be squaring the stellium and squaring Donald Trump's Venus and Biden's Jupiter. In addition to that, Joe Biden has his Mars at 12 degrees Scorpio, so the Sun is going to be conjunct Mars. So he will have this extra energy, which he hasn't really shown over the last few months physically. So he's going to find himself a lot more energy over the next few days as the Sun becomes near his Mars and gives him that extra oomph. But I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be a decision on the 3rd. I think there'll be a lot of confusion, and it may take quite a few days for it, or maybe a few weeks, for it to get sorted out.
Right. And what I've noticed is that as I'm looking at these two charts right in front of me right now, I'm looking at 8 p.m. in LA time at the end of our election day. I'm looking at their charts with the 8 p.m. time on their charts. And like you said, the Sun is conjunct Mars exact at 8 p.m. at that time for Joe Biden. But with Donald Trump, he has Moon exactly conjunct his Sun at 8 p.m., which is interesting. I think he's going to feel he has won. And maybe he has, but I think he's going to feel that sense of, I've got this somehow. But I think it's not going to be clear. And there's going to be controversy about actually how it plays out.
Donald Trump has all this activity in his 11th house. So that's the house of friends, relationships, and he's got 3 planets there. He's got his Mercury, his Venus, and his Saturn there. And that house and those planets, well, the Saturn and Venus, are being squared by the stellium. So this is really going to challenge how he feels about the relationships that he has with the American people, with the people around him. It's going to be quite a tough time. Joe Biden, having his Mars at 12 degrees Scorpio, Uranus is nearing the opposition of Mars to Scorpio, which is quite explosive. So there could be a lot of angry talk coming up after this election from both sides, but it's going to affect them both, of course, very differently. And looking at Biden's chart, what I find really interesting, he's got 3 planets in the 12th house. He's got his Sun, he's got his Venus, and he's got his Mercury. You don't really get to know Joe Biden because he's very much like this. And very philosophical. Trump's more overt. Trump's more out there. Trump's more Venus in the 11th house, which is a very nice place to have Venus.
And Leo rising.
And Leo rising makes you very gregarious, enjoying your friends, enjoying all the different...
And Mars at Leo rising.
And with Mars... With
Conjunct.
Mars conjunct your ascendant on a Leo rising means I can do no wrong. I'm going to win even if I don't win.
Brash confidence. He's very, very confident, and he feels his way's the right way. And so there's a lot of optimistic, I can do this, nothing can stop me. It's really an amazing rising sign to have 29 Leo rising and Mars sitting right there. It makes him just unstoppable in certain ways.
And Joe Biden having all that stuff in the 12th house makes him more spiritual, more touchy-feely in a way, if that's the right word. But he's got those three fast planets in that 12th house, so he'll be attracted to philosophy. He'll be thinking about philosophy. He'll be thinking about the bigger picture, while the president will be thinking about himself, being a Leo rising, with his Mars conjunct to the ascendant. And Biden has got Sagittarius rising. So they've both got fire signs rising. One's more overt, gregarious, in your face. The other one is a lot more subtle, a lot more scorpionic in his approach to the way he's been presenting himself recently. Also, because of COVID, a lot of people had to stay at home, and Joe Biden had to stay at home. So that's a very 12th house thing to do, is kind of stay at home, organising things from the back, because physically he was putting himself at risk, so he had no choice. So he would actually feel quite comfortable. Now having the Sun conjunct his Mars is bringing him out, and people are going to get to see what he's really like in real time.
Don't underestimate Joe Biden. That's what I think we're going to be seeing with that Sun conjunct Mars, because we're going to see that he is a fighter more than he appears.
The other thing which is interesting about Joe Biden's chart, he's Sagittarius rising, but he's got his Uranus opposed his rising sign. So you will not know what to expect from somebody like that. So get ready for a surprise in delivery, a surprise in energy coming from Joe Biden, because we all know the way Donald Trump presents himself. Lots of energy, fighting fit, lots of gusto. But Joe Biden, you've got all that scorpionic stuff in the 12th house, which makes him quite hidden from view. But he's got Sagittarius rising, which is a fire sign, opposed Uranus, which means you're not quite sure what you're going to get. Right. Because it's going to be quite a surprise. And he hasn't, if it was poker, he hasn't revealed his true hand yet. And the Uranus opposed ascendant in his chart, that will come to the forefront sometime in the next few days.
Right. And on the election day, Sun is opposed Uranus. So we are not going to, everything is going to be like that. Like it's going to be kind of shocking, I think. I don't know what the outcome will be. Who knows what it will actually land on, because I don't think it's going to be landed for some time. And with Sun opposed Uranus in Scorpio, Sun's in Scorpio, Uranus is in Taurus, So that's acting similarly to his chart. So that'll be interesting too.
Tuesday is going to be a very interesting day. It's what happens today and tomorrow that's going to make a huge difference to what happens on Tuesday.
That's a good way to say it. And so as the week continues from there, it's an interesting, again, at the end of the week, all this action is happening again. So it's around Friday that we're going to start to see some more results in a way. And I think that there's a grand trine with Sun, Moon, and Neptune, which is like, oh, we did it, we made it. Everyone's going to be sort of relieved. Meanwhile, that the moon is now opposing the stellium on that day, the same day, and then squaring Mercury, which is direct now, so it's starting to go forward. So there's a grand trine and a kind of almost a T-square thing going on, but certainly a strong opposition from the moon on Friday. So even though on one hand we're going to be going, oh, we made it, there's also this, and there's more. And I think, we have to keep getting a second wind on this because it's not done yet.
I agree with you. It's not done yet. And as Mercury distances itself away from the stellium, that's when clear communication will come to the forefront. We've talked about the 12th of November, where Jupiter conjuncts Pluto for the last time. By then, Mercury will have moved on so many degrees that it will not be affecting the stellium anymore, and therefore clearer thinking and clearer understanding about what's just happened will come to the forefront.
Right. That's a good example because in the United States, different states are having different rules about how long ballots can be counted for. So I wonder if it will be as long as November 12th or so, 10th, 11th, 12th, where we'll get actual results.
It'll be interesting. And in the UK, we'll be in the middle of a lockdown. And things will start to become clear whether the actions taken by the government today, affecting next week, are actually going to work. And by the November the 12th, we'll get an indication whether the full lockdown is working. And we've mentioned before in a lot of these astrocasts that when a pandemic reaches its height, Jupiter and Pluto are normally conjunct. So very important a couple of weeks coming up.
Yeah, and the turning of the tide, that around the middle of this month and certainly by December, we're going to be turning the corner in terms of feeling a sense of like we're going forward again, I think. And so what is so unknown right now and has been so unknown for this whole year since last October, there's going to be awareness like, okay, here's the plan, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to feel like we can start to move forward again. I think it's going to be a big relief, but it's not this week.
Oh no, and it's not next week. It's going to take a few weeks, but we're all going to come out of it stronger and wiser. Don't forget, we are living in extraordinary times astrologically, because the last time the stellium of Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto occurred in Capricorn happened almost 4,000 years ago, and the next time it's likely to happen will be in a few 4,000 years. So these are momentous times, and what takes place in the next couple of weeks will affect us for the next couple of 100 years, maybe for the next couple of 1,000 years. But these are huge times and extremely important.
Yes. So on that note, for these next couple of weeks, stay on your horse. Happy Halloween. That's today here in LA. And happy birthday to me on Election Day. So think of me on that day, and we wish you a really good week. And it's very interesting times we're living in, and it's going to resolve. It's just not quite yet. So hang in there, everybody, and we'll see you next week with another episode of Astrology World with Diana and Cary. See you soon.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.